This time around, we are going to be adding extensibility to the object. In the first part, just with the other part, we added resources to the object. Now we are adding extensibility to the object. Now, why is that needed? Sometimes you want an object to be editable later on. So, in order for us to edit the object later on, we we have to generate a signing ability for that. Go over Now let's go over the code and let's see how we can add extensibility. That means extend ref to the object. So we are going over the code, go over the code from the beginning line by line. So we start with the, like we know this is the address, this is the name of the contract or the model, which is object playground. Under this address called my address, then we are importing the signer from the standard library. Then we are importing a string, the string itself and the string type. Then we're also importing Aptos framework objects, the Aptos framework object itself and the Aptos framework object types. So in this line of code, this constant define the error that will be thrown. The first one is error when the caller that calls the function is not the owner of the object. This error will be thrown. For the second constant, is when the caller that calls the function is not the publisher of the smart contract. The second is not publisher error will be thrown. So now let's move on. Now we are having three resources, three struct, which are also called resource in Aptus framework. So we are having these three resources. We are having the first resources is called my struct. The second resource is called my message. Is called message. Then the third one is called object controller. This first one is the one that will be added to the object, that will be moved to the object from the beginning when it is created. In a later function, we will add this resource to the object, meaning that's what we are going to be doing. We add this message to the object. That means at that time, that means you have to extend the object. So this third struct, which is resource, is used for storing the extend ref. It's used for storing the extend ref. Now let's move on to the function. Now in this first function, we are creating the object. We are creating the object, and this keyword entries means that this function is a kind of function that users can interact with from the can be from the front end. So when a function is named entry in Aptos framework, it means that users can interact with it from outside the contract. This word phone is to declare that we are creating a function, then followed by the name of the function create my object. So we are um, receiving or accepting a an argument which is called referring to a signer. So in this first line, we are retrieving the address of the caller, the person calling the function. We are retrieving the person's address using this signer tools to retrieve the person's address, and we stored it inside this variable called caller address. So we created the next line. We created the object associated and we associated the object to the person's address. So this object is created here and is associated with the person's address. So and it returns a constructor ref. Constructor ref is like making reference to the object. So the object is being returned. And in the next line, we are generating a signer for the object. So remember, it's like a box. So the object has been created in this first line. Then in this one, we are generating a signer. It's like generating a key or a access control for the object. So if we want to interact with that object, we need this access control. We need this key. This object signer will serve as the key to interact with the object. So we generated the signer, and it returns this, or it is stored within this variable called object signer. Then we moved the resource. Remember my struct that we declared before. We moved the resource and initialized the value that was there. So we move the resource into the object. So that's what happened in this line of code. We move the resource into the object using the access control, the key. So with the access control, we can interact with the object. So after moving the first resource into the object, in the next line, we are creating or we are generating extend ref. Extend ref is like the this access card. that will enable us to add more resources. So without having the extend ref, we cannot add more resources to the object. Remember, we have already added one resource to the object. Now, the next line, we have to generate this extend ref in order for us to later on add more resource to the object. So we are generating extend ref, and after generating the extend ref, we moved we stored the extend ref within the struct within this struct called object controller, and stored it within the function within the and stored it within the object. So that's what happened in this function. In this right now, in this next function called add message, we're going to be adding a new resource to the object that we have created. So these are the arguments that we will be accepting. These are the arguments, and we are accepting these parameters. Then the first one, we are retrieving or extracting the caller's address with these signer tools. We are extracting the caller's address using the signer tools. Then after that, we will check this. We will check if we will check with this assert to ensure that the person calling the function is the owner of the object. So the person calling the object, that's what this assert method is handling here, is checking the person calling the function, is it the owner of the object. If it is not the owner of the object, it will throw an error, not owner. The next one, we are having another check, and we are checking using this assert tools to check the person calling the function, is it the publisher of the smart contract. If the person calling the function is not the publisher of the smart contract, it throws an error saying not publisher. Then we are retrieving the address of the object with this method, object object address. We are retrieving, then we are passing in the object which will pass as argument into the method, and we are retrieving the address of the object. Remember, I told you the address has an object has address in on the blockchain, so we are retrieving the address in this line of the code. After retrieving the address, we access the resource, object controller resource, that we stored within the object, and we are using the object address to get to access the object on chain, and retrieving the object resources where we stored our extend ref. That's why we added .extend ref to access to get the extend ref from the resource within the object. Then after retrieving the extend ref, the next thing, we are use the extend ref, which is like a access card, to generate a signing key, a signer key for to generate or to generate a signing key for so that we can add more resource. So that's what we did here. We use the extend ref after retrieving the extend ref, the access card, like we called it, and we use this method to and pass in the extend ref to generate a signing key for it to enable us add more resource to the object. After generating the signing key, we moved the new resource into the object using this new signing key that we generated from the extend ref. So this is how we can extend an object in Aptos framework. So adding extensibility, it is through this process that we can add extensibility to. In the next section, we'll be dealing with disabling and toggling of transfer in an object. By default, all objects are transferable, but it can be changed if we want to ensure the object is not transferable. So there are ways we can disable the ability for the object to be transferred. So we'll look at it in the next section of the video.